welcome to CAFC, the Charlton all-time Fantasy 11 club. And my God, this is the place to be. You don't want to be out there in the real world at the moment. You don't want to be dealing with sacking managers and who's going to be the next one, all that sort of stuff. No, let's stay here. This is nice. This is great. Let's talk about playoff finals. Let's talk about players who played for the club for over 300 times. Let's talk about Joshua Wilcox, today's guest, and the man who is doing something that I can't possibly do, which is literally going to pretty much every game, vlogging, talking about it, doing his level best to give fans the chance of getting a bit of an insight as to what's going on. Sod that. I was delighted to be invited onto the Charlton Chronicles, which is one of the sort of sections of Josh's channel. It's great. It's a place to actually discuss all that stuff and get fans' views and that kind of thing. It's a great show. I love doing it. Click have a little look at the link to find that, because it was great. It was great to be part of. But that isn't what this is about. This is about let's just shut the doors, close the curtains, and just remember the good old days. I gave Joshua the chance to pick any player from the history of the club that he wanted to be in his all-time Fantasy 11, and he wanted to go for players that had just played in the time that he'd been watching, completely disregarding the history of the club. No, thank you. Don't want to know about any of that. No, I completely get the point. It is hard to judge players that we weren't around to see, but that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? But yeah, so it's a really interesting starting 11 from Josh. Some of the players I wasn't even aware of. So we get into those. Yeah, he's got some interesting choices. If you disagree with his choices, if you love his choices, make a comment below. This is a positive space, guys. So it's all good. It's all good vibes, and it's all about who you want in your Fantasy 11. So welcome the fantastic Mr. Joshua Wilcox.
Hello and welcome back to CAFC, the Charlton all-time Fantasy 11 club. Thank you very much for coming back. We've got an amazing guest on this afternoon. The reason I created this channel is because I love talking about Charlton. It's one of my favourite things to do. What I don't like doing is talking about how a Charlton are getting on at the moment. It is depressing. I don't want to swear too early on in this video, but it's very depressing at the moment. Talking about who the manager is, what players we're going to sign. Are we going to get Clark Harris? Aren't we? We've agreed terms, but he won't agree personal terms. I want to think about that for a bit. But our guest today is someone who deals with that on a bi-weekly basis, pretty much. One of the new Charlton YouTube mafia, I'm going to call him, and leading the line very well. It's the fantastic Mr. Joshua Wilcox. How you doing, sir?
Very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. I'm good. A lot better than you, having to trudge all the way over the country going and watch the team we love. How was the trip down to Port Vale? Not even getting to do a video there. It must have been pretty tricky.
It's definitely an experience. I say it was a great day out with a couple of mates, and we spoke to a few of the boys there as well. But quite, I don't know. It felt like a bit better than the last games have been, but it wasn't too much of an improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching the game at home, and you see us go ahead, and you're thinking, well, this is great, but all that's going through the back of your mind is how long until we concede, and it just seems to be an ongoing thing at the moment.
Yeah, I think when the third went in for us to go 3-2 up, a few of their fans started leaving, and I think a few in the back row behind me were like, "No, wait, don't go yet," because we know what we're like.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why I kind of created this space. But where did you've been going for about 7 months? Is that about right? You've been doing the channel for your channel?
Yes. Yeah, it was July last year. So yeah, about that now.
And you're up to nearly 900 subscribers? Pretty much.
Just hit 900 today.
Congratulations! Yeah. That's massive. So what actually prompted the start of the channel? Was it just your pure love for Charlton, or was it looking for a bit of a project? How did it come about?
I think when I started going home and away proper regularly, which would have been just before Jackson was in charge. So since it's been terribly, that's when I I turned 18, and my mum sort of just went, "You can get out of the house on a Saturday." So I went to all the home and away games, didn't really miss a game under the Jacko era. And even then, that season after, I started doing it, but I didn't release them in a way. So I was starting to do it and see what they turned out like. And I was like, you know what? I don't think this is for me. I think I'd rather just enjoy my match day experience. But then, I don't know, it sort of just clicked during, I think me and Nick went to the Netherlands in June. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna vlog out here. And we went to Malta, England as well. And I think the Netherlands vlog's on about 14,000 views, and I think that sort of just inspired me to carry on. And that was my first proper video. And I speak with a lot of big creators as well. I run a charity match as well, and that sort of inspires me. Speaking to, you know, I'd say one big name at the moment with Danny Aaron's Angry Ginge. I've spoken to them in the past. Ellis Platten as well. I met him in Malta, had a chat with him about the channel and stuff. And it's those sort of names that was sort of like, go for it, just do it. What have you got to lose? And to be honest, I'd look back at it as a blessing. I think it's worked very, very well. A lot better than I expected it to.
It's amazing, and I say it pretty much every week that I've got a lot of friends that support, you know, Premier League clubs, and you can get access. If you're a Premier League supporter, you're on everything all the time. So for me, having your channel and the other guys' channels to actually just to watch and sort of see people talking about Charlton, it's a massive kind of it's very cathartic, because that's my other question is the reason I did this channel is because I don't like talking about how difficult it is at the moment, but that's what you're doing, and you're actually out there doing it every week. There must be those weeks or those matches where you're like, do you know what? I'm throwing that recording in the bin. I'm not even going to the game. How hard is it to keep going and keep generating stuff when we're on the form we are at the moment?
That's a very good question. It's difficult. It is difficult going to games, and I think there was a couple games during the December period. I think the Burton game, I just scrapped it. I think it was the Burton game that I was just like, I recorded it, and it was a really, really boring game. And then conceding late on as well, it was like it's definitely not meant to be. You're not meant to do this one. And I think there was a couple games at the start. So I think Gillingham away, I didn't vlog either. I just didn't fancy it. I thought, I don't know, there's some games that you sort of don't really want to do it in a way. But then other games you can just show up and, you know, it just comes second nature for you, and it's part of the match day experience for me. Which is why I'll always record, but if the game's terrible and I don't think it will make a good vlog, then I won't release it. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess it's one of those things that now it's become, if you were going to the matches anyway, all home and away, and it's part of your match day experience, that's great. I mean, for me, it's literally, if I'm going to a game, I'm going for a beer before half time. Afterwards, I don't think I'd be able to hold the microphone, but the fact that it's in your kind of your habit of doing it, I think that's great. And it's probably it's giving you a bit of a community. Do you get many people? Have you become a bit of a mini celeb around the ground? Do you get people coming up to you and talking about the videos, or is it kind of, are you still flying under the radar? Are you still just a normal, regular supporter? Start of the season, you got a few looks from people, but no one would ever come and talk, because, you know, I'd only released a few videos at that point. I'd only just come in the summer. So people were aware of me, but they didn't approach me. And then it sort of hit, I think it was about September, October time. I had my set point where I do the interviews every single week. And that's when more people started coming over. And, you know, I've had a few people come over and ask for interviews. And you say, like, building a community, it's also within the YouTube community as well. Obviously, we do the live stream with the rest of the Charlton boys, and then I've spoken to so many League One YouTubers this year that I probably wouldn't have spoken to before. Yeah. And it's sort of, it does take you out your comfort zone a little bit when you're meeting a stranger that you've met online outside a football ground. It's a bit weird, but it's sort of,
I'm pretty sure my mum will meet about stuff like that.
And you get the occasional one that comes up to you. I think at Bristol Rovers, I had a young lad come up to me and say, I've got a bone to pick with you. Why did you put Oxford away right in the last category last year? And it was funnily enough, he was on the coach journey that I called terrible.
Oh wow.
So that was why. But yeah, no, it was you get a few that come up to you and discuss, sort of say, oh, I enjoy the videos, and then they try to give you an in the know insight for you to mention in a video and things like that.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I think one of the ones you were talking about there was the Chronicles. How did that the Charlton Chronicles, I mean, it's like you seem to have a few different you got the predictions, the transfer roundup, the match previews are obviously the main one, and the match day vlogs are, I think, the ones that get the biggest views. But the Chronicles is a really interesting one because it's almost like this little magazine show that you seem to have different guys coming on. Did that just come naturally? Did you all talk about it beforehand? Because I think you've had Brazilians on, you've had Tyler on, who's got his own big channel. I think Tom does his own channel. Did you guys all just chat before and say, let's just meet up? Or did it come quite naturally, or was there quite a plan of like, right, this is what we're going to do this season?
I think it came originally. This was so before I'd even thought about doing YouTube. The idea was to do the live streams. It was going to be me, Nick, and Ben, who's obviously quite regular on my channel. Ben's work commitments means he can't do the live streams, and hence why Nick was always a staple in it. I think me and Nick were always like, we want to host something like that. And then I spoke to Tyler when the new ownership went through, and we done a live stream speaking about the new ownership. And just from there, I mentioned it to him, and then he was like, "Oh, I'll get in contact with Tom as well." And then we created a group chat, us four, and then we were consistent with it at the start. It sort of fell a little bit midway through the season. Tyler's in his third year at uni, me and Nick are in our second, so it's sort of a bit up in the air sometimes. But then there's been some weeks where someone's not able to do it, and then you just obviously Charlie's been becoming quite a regular on it now, so we've added him in the group chat. I think Jack came on quite a bit as well, Salford Addict, who was he used to vlog back in the championship days. But yeah, we've had a fair few guests come on and speak as well from other clubs, and it sort of, the idea to do that is to help grow it even more just across League One in general. Because obviously we want to be speaking to Charlton fans, but we also want League One clubs to come on the live stream and look at like, well, let's see how Charlton are getting on and watch our live stream to gain an understanding of that. And that's sort of the idea of it. As you said, it's like a weekly magazine in a way, to sort of just discuss the dross of on the pitch at the moment.
It's great. I love it. And like I said, no matter how badly we've done or how well we've done, it's a great place to go and kind of, I think, just see people talking through it. And like I say, it's quite cathartic. That wasn't around when I was going to, when I started going, we were in the Championship, and then we went up to the Prem. My kind of life as a Charlton supporter has been from about the age of 6 through till 18. We were on the upward trajectory, and it was really easy. And then as soon as I went off to uni, we started to fall down, and I kind of lost my place with it a bit, which is why there's so many of your choices I've got no idea about. So I'm really interested in learning about a lot of the players. But do you get a lot of fans like me or older that have you had any negative kind of comments in that obviously you guys you're in your 20s or late teens, and you've kind of come to Charlton in a time where maybe we're not doing so well, or you've seen like the Power years where it's been as good as it's probably been since the Premier League years. You probably get a lot of the older guys, although it's a different audience. I don't know how many of them are on YouTube, but you get many of them that are like, you've got no idea what Charlton's all about. You weren't there for Back to the Valley. You weren't there for the really hard times. Or is everyone's kind of response been positive?
I don't think you get any negative comments in that way. Obviously, with YouTube, you always get negative comments, and especially at the start, I had a few like, "Oh, not another Charlton vlogger." I thought we got rid of those, and I think there's nothing from, as you say, the older generation. I think with some of the people that are regulars on my channel and always comment on the videos, that did experience those times, it's all positive. It's never anything negative back, like linking back to those. I do know what you mean, though. You do get the occasional one on Twitter that just goes, "Oh yeah, you weren't there during those times. You wouldn't understand how hard it was." But like, even when I go on the forums, I've just started going onto forums and promoting the channel through that way as well. And even there, I'm getting positive comments on that. And it is quite interesting to see them all saying that this is the worst we've been since the 90s, which, yeah, there you go. That sort of sums up where we are at the moment. And those fans that have experienced it before, they've gone on a roller coaster journey. And one thing me and Nick always say is, we've obviously, with the older fans that obviously been going for years, the chance of us playing in the Prem in their lifetime again is slim. very slim. Whereas for us, we've still got that opportunity. You know, you never know what's going to happen in the next 50, 60 years that we could be back up there. You know, you never know. And that's sort of that's another reason that it keeps you going to games, because even though, we're not doing great at the moment, we'll experience these times and hopefully we can bounce back in the next couple of seasons and get back in the Championship.
I think it comes out in your team. Like you look at some of the players we've had just over the last couple of years, which is where your kind of teams come from. The main, like, so probably the last 10 years. There's been some players there that are now playing in the Prem, and you're thinking, well, if we were good enough to have them, are we good enough to get back there? How long is it going to take? What's the rebuild like? I mean, they're putting 500 grand in their pockets supposedly for Clark Harris. They're obviously willing to spend money. So it's that lingering hope that I think has always been the biggest upsetting point of Charlton. Is there's always that little carrot that's dangled along. Will it ever come? I don't know, but they just keep dragging it along. Why does Nick record in the bathroom sometimes? What happens?
So we play for I coach a uni team and he plays for them.
Is he a goalkeeper?
He is a goalkeeper, yeah.
I thought that was what you guys were mainly referring to, but I just wanted to check because he's always talking about Ash and how that comes out. Also, he looks like he's massive, but you can't really tell when people on YouTube.
He's not really. He's not much taller than me, to be fair.
Oh.
But no, he records in the bathroom sometimes because then it doesn't echo between us. We've started coming to the conclusion that when he is here after the football, that we record sat here together instead now. Yeah. Because if we done it separate in the bathroom, you know, he sat on my toilet quite literally, with my laptop on his lap. So I told him to put a background on that video, but he didn't want to. But there's been some good times with Nick because we always go out on a Wednesday night after games to celebrate the game.
Yeah.
And it's always if we've been drinking before the streams, it's quite a laugh when he's sat there in the kitchen talking about Norwegian girls as he did one week.
What an interesting insight into the uni life. Now I went to uni and it's bringing back a lot of nostalgia. Not Norwegian girls, but how the world's changing. It's become a much closer place. Also, one other question about your videos. Especially the matchday vlogs, you have this one character in it that I never know who it is. Who's the guy who, no matter what's happening, whether the ball's going off the pitch, whether it's just a corner, whether it's close to being a goal, who's always going, come on, come on, come on? Who's that? Is that I'm getting the feeling it's Ben. Who is that?
It is Ben. Yes, it is Ben.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yes. Me and Ben have had season ticket together for the last 3 years.
It's his little catchphrase, isn't it?
Yeah, me, Ben, and a girl called Lily as well that have been going. The three of us went sort of as pretty much from that Jacko era that we sort of got season tickets upstairs together. He used to sit downstairs with parents, Ben, and then he moved up with us. But he does love shouting when I've got the camera out, especially.
It's the right place to do it. I every time it's like, we're slightly on the attack or defending, it's come on, and I'm like, where are we coming? What are we coming to?
You either hear him or like when it's late on and there's a corner and stuff, and then that's when I'll scream, "Go on!" That's me. But you do get the occasional, especially the referee shouts. Always Ben on that.
I mean, it is a lovely flavour, and I think that's it. When you're not able to, I'm not able to get to every game. So having those videos in the crowd and that, it does give you that thing of like what it's actually like to be there. It's as close as you're going to get. So I really appreciate it, and hopefully you guys keep it. I mean, what's the ambition with the channel? Is it just to keep growing it? Have you got any other ideas for streams or anything like that, or is it have you got sick of it and do you think if we keep playing badly it's going to shut down?
No, I think it's definitely something that I'll continue into next season. Definitely into next season. Whether I look at maybe the season after that, then that's when I sort of. But obviously, I'll be doing my dissertation next year at uni. So how often obviously I'll still be going to every game. It's just whether I can be bothered on top of all that work to edit all these videos and stuff. But I'm sure they will stay regular. Ambition wise, I've always wanted to do something in media, which is weird because I'm studying coaching at uni. Okay. but I've always wanted to go down a coaching or media route. Since I was young, my granddad used to always call me a football encyclopedia. I'd just sit for hours and just talk to him about the most random stuff, and he had no idea about. It's always been something that I used to sit in front of Sky Sports News all day, every day when I was during the summer holidays, just to improve my knowledge on what's going on in the football world, so that I could talk about it with my granddad and my dad. And it's that's sort of where it came from, because now I can sit in front of a camera and not annoy my dad and granddad as much, and I can talk about it instead to the camera, and that's the sort of reasoning behind it all, that I can just continue doing that. Ambition wise, we've got an opportunity with the Charlton women to do some videography for them and do some content for them over the next couple of weeks, which there is a game, I think it's they're playing Brighton in a cup game, which we're going to be down there and doing a video for that. But that sort of, if I can get my name into the club and that opportunity arises to go down a media path, I've got my YouTube channel to show for it in that way. Instead of obviously my coaching degree, I've got that route down, or I've got the channel to show a media route.
That's fantastic. The fact that it doesn't link in straight away, but knowing you're studying coaching, it gives a whole nother layer to the videos, because you guys do talk about tactics, but it's obviously more from who's playing, why they're playing, and what sort of. And I know nothing about tactics. I'm completely. I like the atmosphere. I like certain players, but I'm a complete dunce when it comes to tactics. So hearing you guys kind of talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it, it is really interesting. And knowing that that's where it's coming from makes it gives it like a whole other layer of depth. So how hard was it picking the team? Did you put any restrictions on yourselves? What did you want to go for with your fantasy 11?
So I went with the best Charlton players that I've seen. Obviously in person, that is. So yeah, the best players that I've seen live that I felt would probably be a comfortable 11. Obviously I made that late change that you'll know about, and I will mention it when I get into the attackers. But I went with a team that I got brought to my first Charlton game 2015-16. Before that, my dad was trying to get me down Spurs. So I've got a little soft spot for Spurs, but mainly, obviously, my heart's all with Charlton now. It's going home and away, it draws you in a little bit more. When I had a home season ticket, obviously Charlton was still there, but I was watching the Spurs games as well. I went to a few Spurs games here and there, but when I started going home and away, that drew me in even more in a way. That's why some of these players are in there. Funnily enough, I haven't actually chosen any players that played for us when I went home and away. Actually, I did choose one. I chose one.
That's the question I should have asked you. How did you what was the story? You mentioned your dad was trying to get to Spurs. How did you get into Charlton? So 2015 was the first game you went to. How old were you then? About
it's been 10, 11.
So that was the first game, and what kind of did you have much for Charlton experience before that, or is it just it's your local club and that was the one your dad took you to?
My granddad grew up in South London. He, funnily enough, lived in Bermondsey, which obviously isn't regarded as a nice part. He went to both Charlton and Millwall.
Wow,
it was a thing. That was a thing. It was a thing back in the day. That's what he told me.
My dad went to a few Palace games when we were really bad, but I can't even imagine doing that now. It's insane.
Yeah, exactly. No, he said that. Yeah, you'd go to whatever club was at home that day.
Right.
It wouldn't be a case of he didn't travel away as much. He went to a few away games, but he'd mainly go stay at home. Didn't really have the money to go up and travel around, but. Yeah, he went between Charlton and Millwall, and then obviously Charlton's a bit more of a friendlier atmosphere, so that's why he took me to Charlton instead. But yeah, I fell in love with that, and then I went to occasional home games sort of that time, and then my first season ticket, funnily enough, was the promotion year, so I thought I was a good luck charm. The 18-19 season was my first season ticket, which I got with my mum, my stepdad, and my little brother at that point. And yeah, we sat down in the family stand corner that season.
I'll be honest, the first season, I can't remember. I think it was either the season we went up or the season before that. But when you're on the upward trajectory, it's so easy. This is great. Everyone's in a good mood. We're having a great time. Like Bowyer's back and he's doing all this stuff. And then it's really when the wheels come off and you've got guitar playing owners that you think, right, well, is this my love for it? But I guess it was instilled in you and you couldn't really walk away at that point.
No, not at all. I couldn't even dream about walking away from it. You know, it's an addiction. I don't know why. I don't know why I've chose to be addicted to going home and away, but it's the whole experience. I think I saw something on Twitter the other day saying, you lot that go Charlton every single game home and away, how do you do it? And I commented, like, it's the whole experience of it, you know, like the journey up there or down, wherever it is across, you know, the same faces that you always see at games that, you know, you've seen for the last few years that you just know you can go have a pint with and have a chat with without fail, really. And, you know, I've made so many like friends from going to Charlton games even before I was doing YouTube that, you know, you sort of could always go up to and go, oh, we are playing terribly, aren't we? You can just have a chat at half time, before games, after games, and it's just easy to see those familiar faces and not be scared to talk to them.
It's lovely. You're painting a really emotional picture. I'm falling in love with you a little bit, Josh. I won't lie to you. The Venn diagram of people who've got the money to go, have got the time to go, is quite small. I mean, I'm a dad. I'm married. I work sometimes on Saturday, so there's very little time. But students and retirees are there's probably a lot of guys who are between sort of 17 and 20, and then there's probably a big jump up between sort of 60 and 70. I'd imagine that's the main thing, and it's a lovely thing that you've got this sort of this friendship group, and you've only got one thing in common, which is the love of Charlton. But fair play to you. That's great. All right, let's get into the team. Otherwise, this is going to take 3 hours. Let's start with your goalkeeper. Who have you gone for?
I've gone with Nick Pope. What a highlight that is.
Pretty magic double save, that, isn't it? So, I mean, 33 appearances for Charlton. He had 8 loans before we sold him to Burnley. What is it about? I mean, there it just seems like he's a reaction goalkeeper. What was it about him that you loved?
I was on the fence between 2 players, and I think everyone will know who the second goalkeeper was in Dylan Phillips. I was on the fence between Pope and Phillips, and the reason I went with Pope was, you know, obviously that save lives in my memory and it always will do. And also the career he's had since Charlton as well. Obviously Phillips hasn't had the best career since then. And I'd love Dylan Phillips to come back. But obviously Nick Pope's now playing in the Champions League. He's playing for England. And I think that's the sort of the reasoning behind it more than what he's done in a Charlton shirt as such. You know, I think it was the season we went down, if I'm not mistaken, that he played. I think
you might be right.
So yeah, obviously not great for a young player coming into that team, but you know, I think it was more the career he's had since Charlton rather than for Charlton. Because if it was for Charlton, I probably would go with Dylan Phillips. But yeah, that was the reason I went with Nick Pope, because he was the first goalkeeper that I saw for Charlton, and you know, he was sort of just chucked in at the deep end and done his job quite well, I think.
I think that's the beauty of Charlton is that they do give young players the opportunity to play. And I mean, he really did take it. I mean, we loaned him out a lot, but I've heard things about he just seemed like a really natural goalkeeper, but maybe he hadn't filled out, or maybe he didn't have that experience with us that he's got now, obviously. But I mean, effectively, Newcastle seem like this all-star team. I know their players are all injured at the moment. They've got no one actually in their first team that's playing, but they've kind of assembled a team with infinite money. and they've kept Nick Pope as their goalkeeper. That kind of says quite a lot about him. He's 31 as well. I assumed he was like mid-20s. He's 31, so you kind of think that he's, if not hit his peak, he's kind of, I know goalkeepers go on a bit longer, but he's probably only got about 3 or 4 more seasons maybe. Do you think that he's going to take over from Pickford? Do you see him sort of challenging, or do you think that's kind of him being the number 2 is kind of what he's going to hope for?
I think it's more challenging for that number 2 spot now. Obviously, you've got Sam Johnston's been called up more recently. It's been Ramsdale, Johnston, and obviously Pickford. But it all depends on the rest of the season, whether he goes to the Euros. I think he'll probably get a chance in the friendlies in March to sort of showcase himself. I think our friendlies in June, which are yet to be announced, are going to be played at St James's Park as well. So I think it would be brilliant for obviously him to be called up then. It's going to be easy for him to play in that stadium, isn't it? So yeah, I think it probably is more of a pushing for that number 2 role now. If Pickford gets injured at the Euros in the first group stage game, you'd expect Pope probably to be that number 2, unless obviously with Ramsdale, he's not getting much game time. Southgate said he might drop him if he's not getting the game time. So we'll just have to wait and see on that Euro squad. Who knows what's going to happen with who he's going to call up. But I think Pope's done himself justice to get into that Euro squad, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we sold him for 1.3 to Burnley, and then he went for 11.5 to Newcastle. Do you know if we get any sell-on fees for him? Or
I think we did. We didn't get much. We did get something for it.
Well, long may it continue. Hopefully he gets another big move and we get a little bit more from them. All right, so it's a back 4, pretty solid back 4. Who do you want to go for first?
We'll go left to right. We'll go Ben Parrington, left back.
Dijksteel, Aribo, Taylor. Aribo again. Lyle Taylor pulling wide again. Is this the chance? It is the chance, and it's the goal that they craved. Parrington arriving. A huge sigh of relief from Dylan Phillips. But Charlton did not walk away. They responded in the best possible way.
Well, this is the Charlton that we have learned to know.
Can't take the smile off my face now.
Great little clip, that, isn't it? I mean, go on, tell me why, Ben.
Mate, it was mainly that. That's sort of, I think he's written his name in the club's history off that. I think it's one player that we should never released. I think he'd still be starting for us now, in my opinion. He does his job really, really well. He was just one of those players that it's the same when I go to the other fullback as well, that he done the job that was required of him, and he done it well, or done it good enough to be at this level. And I think he was definitely a big part of that squad, and obviously a big part of Charlton history now with that goal.
It's funny, isn't it? You say should never release him. I mean, I think Eden's doing all right now. I don't think he's doing badly at all. And I think Maatsen was great when he came in, but obviously he was on loan. And then you had the Fulham lad, didn't you, last year? Who was great, but again on loan. But when you look at full-time Charlton players, we haven't been anywhere near a left back until we got Eden in, and Eden's been hasn't had the best season. What do you think? He got a lot of stick, didn't he? He got a lot of stick towards when he got released. What was it that you think people just didn't like about him?
I think he got too comfortable because there wasn't much competition for him. Yeah. I think he knew he had his spot in that starting 11 every single week. And yeah, it didn't really matter how he played. He knew he'd start the next game. And I think especially towards the back end of it, he just got a bit lazy. And yeah, I think that does warrant his release. I'm not saying that he didn't fully deserve it, but I think it's one position that we've, as you've touched on there, is always one that we've missed out on massively now, because Sessegnon would have been a great addition to the squad. I would have loved Sess and Eden. That would have been two very, very comfortable left backs that could compete with each other. With Sess's injury record as well, it would have been beneficial for us. But obviously, he went up to Wigan in the end. But it's always been one position that we've struggled in. We've got Terrell Thomas and Eden that can play there at the moment, and Eden's been a bit up and down. But Eden is always one player that, despite the recent performances from the squad, he's always a player that even if he's playing terribly, he still works his socks off.
Yeah.
I think especially against Orient, I think he misplaced so many passes, and he just couldn't. It just wasn't his game at all. It wasn't his day whatsoever, and you could just see he didn't stop running. He was still, even if he lost the ball, he was straight onto that attacker, and he was trying to win it back. He was working, and that's always what he's done. And I spoke to him at Bristol Rovers as well, and he just seemed so gutted. And I was like, just keep going. Like, we can see you're working hard. Obviously these results aren't helping you or the squad, but yeah, he's definitely one.
How did you get in? How did you get in there to have a chat with him using your contacts now?
No, so we stayed in Bristol Rovers. We stayed in Bristol Rovers. We stayed down in Bristol,
Right.
and you know, we were outside the ground, and I was a little bit more. I was annoyed that we conceded late on once again.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to talk to Appleton before he went back on the coach. And Charlie stayed behind, and obviously all my mates, and bless my missus that had to watch me talk to all the players.
Wow.
But yeah, no, we stood outside the ground, waiting for all the players to come out. You know, we spoke to Dobbo, spoke to Corey, spoke to Eden. Who else did we speak? Alfie. There was a few others as well, but Ash as well. Ash was brilliant. Stood with us for a good 10-15 minutes just chatting while everyone was getting on the coach. Dobbo and Corey shook our hands that they're signing a new contract. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see on that one. That's my little inside source. But yeah, we spoke to Appleton, and you know, walking away from that conversation, I think I mentioned it in the vlog after that game that, you know, the away atmosphere after that game and after Orient was so toxic. And as you know, Mickey said to us that, you know, most of the lads playing at the moment are Charlton fans, they're Charlton boys. Yeah. And to see their own fans that, you know, they've travelled with to games before in the past, having a go at them and booing them, and you know, it was a bit more of like, oh yeah, they're real people. Yeah. You know,
it's easy to forget. It is easy to forget that, and I think because we put them up on such a pedestal, especially when you get into the team when you're like your age, or I was a bit younger, they're these heroes, and that never goes away. No matter how old you get, I still look up to these players who are probably 15 years younger than me. It's insane. So when you say like that, you do think, oh God, the pressure you put on these young lads, but equally they're getting paid a decent amount of money all around. You think of a lot worse ways of spending your professional career. It is interesting though, because like mentioning Ben Perrington and how he thought he was getting picked up every week regardless. What would have happened if he had stayed and then you'd had I think it was Maatsen who came in the year after, I mean, who's now playing in the Premier League pretty regularly. Isn't he? I think has he gone back to Chelsea now? I think he has.
Do you know what? I think he's just, if I'm not mistaken, he's just signing for Dortmund today.
Oh wow! But he was getting into, it was a Burnley team last year, wasn't it? So he had that progression, and then obviously you had Sessegnon. So I wonder what would have happened to Perrington if he'd had someone actually pushing him along. And again, you kind of wonder what could have been with him.
I think Perrington was season after. I think he was in the same year as Maatsen. I think they were in the same squad. It was the season after that he got released. It was just after Jacko, just before Garner came in, that he was released. I think Jacko released him.
I'm glad to know what you're talking about, mate.
Yeah, no, I think it was that one, because I remember him. I vaguely remember him scoring at Burton away, which was mine and Ben's first away game together. That's why that one lives in my memory. I remember that one. So yeah, I think he, yeah, if I just double check, yeah, it was that season, and then he went to Ross County.
Yeah,
it would have been last season if Cess had come in, and I think it would have been quite good to have both of them competing with each other. As I mentioned earlier, having two solid left backs to compete would be what you want in both fullback positions. I think you've got that with Watson and Asimwe. I think Asimwe's on that brink of being good enough, and you know, I think that competition for him is only going to help benefit him as a young player as well. So yeah, I think I would have liked to see what would have happened, whether it would have meant he became, you know, more lazy and like, oh, now I'm not getting in the team and stropping, or it would have done the opposite and made him want to fight for his spot, which I think his character probably would have made him fight for his spot a bit more. And I would have liked to see that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty solid. I mean, he got 7 goals. We had him for 104 appearances. He was the type of player that you think he was quite robust. He did try, he put a good tackle in, which is what I appreciate a lot in a defender. I mean, Eden's great, but I'd say he's better attacking than he is defending almost, which is brilliant with Corey because, you know, most of the time Corey will just get marked out of a game. So to have someone who can support him is brilliant. But yeah, Purrington just seemed like a bit more of a solid player, I think. Where are we going across the back line?
We'll go the next centre back, Conser.
Conser, here we go.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey. Staring at your dress cause it's see-through. Yeah, talking all the shit that you done been through. Yeah, say that you a lesbian, girl, me too. Hey, girls want girls, where I'm from, hey.
Got to be completely honest, I couldn't find one video of Conser in a Charlton shirt. I'd never heard of him before. I understand he's a great player. He's playing with Villa now, but you're going to have to completely lead this one because I've got no idea who this player is.
So looking at his stats, played 86 times for Charlton.
Yeah, which is embarrassing for me. I understand he it in, but it's not like I thought he'd maybe played a couple and then gone straight on. But
yeah,
he played a lot, didn't he?
Yeah. Again, he was another centre back that when I started getting taken more regularly to home games that I saw and was inspired in a way by. You know, I'm not a defender myself. I was a fullback at that point. But it was always one player that, you know, you have your player that you always get drawn to. And it was Conser. I don't know what it was about him that drew me to him, and I just always liked watching him play, and I thought he was quite a comfortable player. And obviously the career that he's now having with Villa, obviously in the Champions League spots, I think they are still. Yeah. So there you go. It's sort of, he's playing in Europe. I think he's knocking on the door for that England call up regularly. I think he's probably one of England's better centre backs at the moment. So I'm happy. I'm happy with going with Conser as an option.
I mean, we sold him to Brentford for 2.8, and then he went on to Villa. I mean, he's like you said, he's got a call up for England. I do wonder what you know. You always look back and you go these sliding doors moments. What would have happened if we'd kept Gomez and Conser? You've got 2 Champions League defenders in centre back. But from that video, those clips, it just looked like he just had so much time on the ball and just cleared things up so nicely. Why are all our other defenders so shit in comparison? What is it that we're not doing? I mean, they've been trained by the same people pretty much. Mm-hmm. Why can't we produce another one of them?
I have no idea. I don't know what it is.
Because we haven't had a good centre back for a long time.
No, is it down to the tactics that they're playing lower, like in the academy? I don't know whether it's the physicality of the sport's gone down a little bit more as well. You know, you're not seeing as many physical defenders come through nowadays. They're more ball playing defenders, as they're called. And I know that's sort of what he was. He was ahead of his time a bit. Yeah, I don't know. You're not seeing many of your Ryan Innes's coming through nowadays.
It's a shame because I loved Innes. Like having him in either box, you felt like, right, he's either going to score or going to get a red card. One of those things is going to happen. I think he got sent off for Forest Green the other day. But
yes, he did.
Yeah, Gomez and Conser, they both seem like those type of players that, like you said, they're ball playing defenders. They're cultured, if you like. I think I struggle as a more old school fan. When I was watching Steve Brown, when Talal Kokori turned up, I was like, well, who's this guy? But yeah, definitely watching the old school way of defending, that seems like the right way to me, which is why I should be nowhere near coaching or anything like that. Is that you're studying coaching? Is that the way things are going forward? And do you think Jones is kind of the closest we've got at the moment to something like that?
Yeah, probably is the way we're going forward. And I think that's one thing that Appleton struggled with, is obviously his tactics at the sides he's been at is playing out from the back and possession-based football that, yeah, it is quite boring to watch us pass backwards and sideways. And as a coach, nothing annoys me more than a fan shouting, "Go forward." So frustrating because they can't go forward. That's why they're not going forward. They're looking after the ball. They're waiting for a gap to open. And that, for me as a coach, that's sort of my philosophy as well. It's always been, I'd love just ball playing defenders. It depends what team I'm managing though, because my under 16s at Sunday League level, I like my tool will go through a player type of centre backs, whereas with the uni team we have free ball playing centre backs that are able and comfortable to look after possession under pressure, can invite the pressure, and if they need to can play a ball over the top. Whereas I think, I'm not making a comparison of a uni team to Michael Hector, but you watch Michael Hector play and it nerves you when a player presses him, because he's just going to boot it out into oblivion and hope someone connects with it. I think it was the Leyton Orient game. He made 37 long balls. I think about 2 of them were successful. So that sort of shows.
I've definitely seen that more in the games recently, where he's played a few that have seemed to have connected, and obviously that's something they talked about because he wasn't doing that at all last season.
No.
But what frustrates me more than anything is because I don't understand the tactics. Holden basically said the same thing that Appleton said, in that we're not going to pass it around for no reason. We want to get the ball forward as quickly as possible, but it's about making sure we're making that right pass. And Holden, for some reason, wasn't doing it, and Appleton came along and then said that he was doing it, and neither of them really seemed to be doing it. So what? I think my question is, why are we so shit? I think that's the question. But I guess it's that thing of, I don't think Holden was really doing anything wrong. I don't think Appleton's doing anything wrong. Maybe we just don't have the players available to play they want to play. Why play that way then? Why are we still trying to play that way? That's what I wonder.
One manager that a lot of people hated, that I actually liked as a coach. I think he's a great coach. I don't think he's a good manager. I think he's a great coach. And that was Ben Garner. Because what he wanted to play and how he wanted to play was, I think, is the right way to play football. I don't like seeing, and I know in League One, probably playing hoofball is your best bet, but
it's the quality of player, isn't it?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
We want to play in the way that the academy plays. Because if you go watch the under-21s or the 18s, I've been a few times over the last couple of years, and you watch them, they'll play out from the back like it's nothing. They'll play possession-based football and attacking-based. And that's sort of what Garner wanted. And I think Garner was probably the closest to getting it right. The only player that couldn't play out from the back was Ryan Innes.
Yeah.
And that was the big issue. He had Owen O'Connell. I think Owen O'Connell was another brilliant example of a ball-playing defender. You watch him at Wrexham as well. He's exactly the same. Will drive the ball out from the back. Lloyd Jones is doing it now, as you mentioned. And that's sort of what we need if we're going to play that style of football. You need your back four that's not afraid to have the ball at their feet, will be happy to invite pressure and look after it. And even with goalkeeper as well. One goalkeeper that was very, very good at it was Wilcox, funnily enough, during the Garner era.
I love
as well.
Wilcox. He was just unlucky with when he got injured, really, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I think Ash is a good goalkeeper on his day, but his confidence is so low. And you can see it in games. The defense don't trust him. He doesn't trust the defense. So, we're not going to get anywhere. And I just feel if we're going to play that way and we're going to use our goalkeeper more, then we need a goalkeeper that's comfortable with the ball at their feet. And a lot of that is the younger players nowadays, which is a surprise that Ash isn't as comfortable with his feet. I think he's got better, but he's not there yet.
I think the issue, and again, not knowing anything, is that we've got one of the best academies in the country. So naturally, you're going to have the best players. So when we're playing teams in the same league, or whatever, there's a good chance that we're going to have the best players. So we're going to have time. You're going to be able to attract the best players. They're going to be able to play that. We are not the best team in League One, and also League One is a lot more physical than probably than the academy or the Premiership or the Championship. So you kind of have to. That's what frustrated me with Garner, because I really like the way he spoke. I watched a couple of interviews with him. He obviously knew his stuff, but what frustrates me is that you can have a plan on paper. I think someone said it. I think even Brownie might have said it at Charlton TV. We've all got a plan until the goal goes in. It's like the Rock. It doesn't matter what your plan is. If you've got a plan and then they score a goal, it all goes to shit. What are you going to do now? So and I think that's the issue I've had with maybe Jacko, Garner, not so much Holden. I think he was unlucky with injuries. Maybe Atkinson. They didn't seem to be able to have a completely different plan B. And maybe you're limited with the players you've got to be able to completely change it up. You can't just change 11 players. But if it's not working passing around the back, what are you going to do? You're going to have to change it up. And I think we're Appleton at the moment, and this is not supposed to be what this podcast is, but I can't not talk about it. I think Appleton seems to be, well, these aren't my players, so we'll do as best we can, but that's it. It doesn't seem like he's like, well, how are we going to win a game?
How are we going to use these players? Yeah.
These are the players you've got, mate, so get on with it.
That's exactly how the conversation went with him outside the ground. It was pretty much exactly that. Was, look at the players I've got available at the moment. We've got, and that's one thing that Corey and Dobbo both said to us was just wait and see when the players start coming back from injury. We've got Carnu as our only striker at the moment.
Yeah.
And even when I spoke to Alfie after that game, and he said that he shouldn't have played against Bristol Rovers. He didn't even train the day before. He wasn't fit at all, and he came off because of the injury and sort of shot himself in the foot now, and he hasn't been featured in the last couple of games. So yeah, I think we've got a lot of injuries, but that was what Holden was sacked for. So
exactly. That's the hard thing, isn't it? And
look at our bench as well.
It's insane. And the thing is, people were saying we were second half FC at one point. We weren't second half FC. We were Chucksanike FC. It was just whenever we played with Chucksanike, who's the best striker in the league and probably one of the best in the championship, we're amazing because he's amazing. But you can't base your whole thing around just having the best players on the pitch because they get injured. So what are you going to do next? Joshua, I'm so sorry, mate.
Let's move on, yeah.
We're not even on your second centre back. That's all my fault as well. I can take complete blame, but I am absolutely loving it. Who do you want to go for next?
Patrick Bauer is the next centre back.
Josh Cullen, he's dug the cross out. The queuing up, and Paul Johnson Flanagan for forced in. Patrick Bauer! These Charlton players write the legend. Wembley, so cruel for Sunderland again. They will not want to see this place again. Absolutely stunned.
I get goosebumps.
It does. It tingles, doesn't it? So, I mean, out of the back four, we've got two players that have scored in the playoff final. I mean, it can't be much better than that. So, is it just because of the goal? What was? I'll be honest. That was the season where I started coming back, so I didn't see much of Bauer other than the last, the Doncaster games in the final. What was it? What did he have?
I think he just was a good all-round centre-back. That, he, again, it's another player that done his job really, really well. Yeah. And again, the same with like Parrington he's a Charlton legend. He's written his name in Charlton history. If he came to Charlton, he wouldn't have to pay for a pint. He wouldn't have to pay for anything. He's forever, that's going to be engraved in every Charlton fan's brain is that commentary where he's dug the cross out, they're queuing up. It's just I've watched that clip a good 50 to 100 times every single year. It's just like it's my screensaver. That one clip of him connecting with the ball. It's every time I open up my laptop, I get a smile on my face. It's that part of it rather than so much his footballing ability. Obviously, he was a great centre half, but he is a Charlton legend, and I think that's the main reason that he's ended up in my best 11.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Ben Parrington kind of had this history where he kind of sort of crept out the back door a little bit. Do you think Bauer? I mean, it was the second goal, obviously.
Mhm.
But also, do you think because he left pretty much? I don't think he played a game for us after that, did he? That was his last game.
No, he went to did he go to Preston?
Preston, yeah. He's
Yeah.
still there. We were trying to loan him back, weren't we, at one point?
Yeah.
Talking about loaning him back. Do you think that he kind of has a sort of elevated view of him because of that, because he left on such a high?
Yes, definitely.
Simple
You know,
answer.
if we went into that championship season and, you know, he wasn't as big a part, you know, you never know. Lockyer, obviously, great centre back in that season. You know, I don't know. Would he have played as much? Probably, but you know, we'll never know. I think he left. He left at the right time, is how I see it. You know, he's forever going to be a Charlton legend. He was just such a, as I said, just solid, done his job, and you know, one player that I would have back in a heartbeat. I just need a player that shows that sort of passion at the back. I think Lloyd Jones potentially has that passion, but with Hector next to him, I'm not sure we'll ever see it.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? And just fingers crossed they do get someone else in, because Hector's the ability to be one of our best players. He's just not, and he just keeps not being it. So, an interesting question though, because we talked about the playoff final. How does your? I was going to ask you this before. With regards to, obviously, you picked a team that you've seen, not necessarily an all-time 11. Do you have the same relationship with the '98 playoff final, or is it because that was before your time? It almost didn't happen. Because for me, I was lucky enough to be at both the four, obviously going into the Premier League and how long that team was built up. For me, they don't compare. But seeing the way you talk about the most recent playoff final is the way that I talk about the 4-all. So, do you have that same passion for both, or is it just doesn't compare at all?
I think for me, obviously, I know that was a bigger achievement. You know, I've watched that game back a few times as well, but I think with the 18-19 one, being there, watching it on, you know, I've watched that game back so many times. I think it's just the whole experience of it. Whenever I watch it, I think back to sitting next to Sunderland fans, giving it to them. You know, it was that whole part of it that it doesn't compare for me. I think as you said, that weight difference for me, obviously for me, that 18-19 one's up here, and you know the other one's obviously a great playoff final, but I wasn't there, and I think that's the deciding factor for me, that because I lived the 18-19 one and obviously wasn't even born for the one before it. Yeah, I think that's why it lives long in my memory and forever will.
I completely agree, and I just wonder about all those people who saw us win the FA Cup and what they think about these two. Playoff final, we were best club in the country at one point. But it is interesting. It's really interesting to see it from that point of view. Okay, so we've got your two centre backs. We had your left back. We're going to go for your right back.
Let's go for my right back, Chris Solly. Another one, I think, is I'd say a Charlton legend for me since I was growing up going to games.
I mean, he was there an awful long time, wasn't he? 301 appearances, 3 goals. So for me, Solly was there in the time that I wasn't as much, and he obviously he came through and he became a really solid player for us. But my memory of him is tarnished because of the heartbreak that was getting relegated and him being one of those 3 players that didn't extend his contract. Can you completely ignore that? He's Solly till I die? He's Mr. Charlton, which he was. He got a testimonial while he's still playing. That not many players have that. But do you have any sort of negative thoughts about that at all? Because Taylor gets a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes and no. I think because of his sort of, you know, the name that he left for himself already. I don't know. I think back to the good memories of him rather than that, to be honest. I think they outweigh it. Obviously, I understand the frustration. I was myself, but you know, I think I couldn't blame him in a way. I think he was there for years. He had new desires, and I think that's sort of the path that he wanted to go down. And that's it really. He's a Charlton legend in my eyes. I don't really take that into account too much.
Okay, that's a very mature way of looking at it. I think we should all be a bit more Josh in our lives. Whereas I think he's an absolute side, and we might have stayed up. I mean, he's not the same as Taylor, is he? He's not like if he wasn't playing week in, week out. He wasn't our starting right back at that point. But to think that he wanted to kind of hold on to this career, and then he went to Ebbsfleet, and he's still there. He still played at the weekend. I just don't think. I think that would we have stayed up? I don't know, but there's every chance that we could have. Because he was a solid player as well.
Yeah, I think potentially having that leader in the dressing room might have helped. But I don't see too much of an impact that he would have had. I do totally agree. I was as annoyed myself, but as I said, I think you want to outweigh it. You want to think about the good times with those players, especially Lyle Taylor. I will forever hate, because I think he's one player that probably could have helped us stay up that season. 100% could have helped us stay up that season. And that's the part that really frustrates me, because he was close to that Charlton legend status. I think anyone being part of that squad was, you could name a player in that squad and you go, yeah, he was a big part of that. And it was frustrating how he ended, and I will be there with my inflatable snake at Wickham away on the last day of the
season. What did Solly kind of? Was it just that he's just such a loyal servant? Was there anything he did technically? He seemed to just be a 7 out of 10 player every week.
Yeah, that's exactly the same as why Perrington's in the squad for me. Is he was that player that just done his job. Never was one that stood out as much, but I think he always done his job and done it to a solid standard. Lovely stuff. It's a solid back four. What are we going for next? How many have you gone for in the middle? I've gone for a 4-3-3. So I've gone for 3 in the middle, and I will start with what I see as Mr. Charlton himself, Johnny Jackson.
Right, so I've got an interesting clip. Johnny Jackson's been picked a few times. There's a couple of goals that he scored that make everyone, you think back to when you think Johnny Jackson. But this is when I fell in love with him.
My hair is long, my nails are pretty. My underwear don't smell too pretty, and I could feel the warning signs. Divorce will be on the rise.
Makes you think why Sandgaard sacked him when he's so good on the guitar.
They could have had
They could have.
He is a handsome devil as well. I mean, what a good-looking fella that is, and he won the hearts of the nation. Then I think. So, go. I'll let you start. Why Johnny Jackson?
Do I need to say too much about him? He's I'd always loved it. Obviously, I was there towards the back end of his career. I didn't see as much as other Charlton fans would of him, but just knowing everything about him, knowing the history that he's had with the club, he was the first manager when I started properly going home and away. So that's another reason that he's in there. That even though obviously it wasn't the greatest on the pitch, it was at the start. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, knowing just everything about him, as you said, he was all round a really great guy, and I hope he does have success at Wimbledon and potentially we get him back one day. I'd love to have him back. I think he's one manager that I would have been very happy to build with, and that's one mistake that I will never forgive Sandgaard for, was sacking him.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, when I came, it's not like I ever turned off from Charlton. I just wasn't going as regularly. And when I started going regularly again, it was when Bowyer was in charge, and it seemed like we really had a good thing going. Of Bowyer manages them, Jackson coaches them, and some amazing free kicks in there as well. that he was getting us to play. And as far as I understand, he was kind of in charge of that. And Gallen would find them. And you had this kind of trio that seemed really solid. And it seemed like we had a way forward. And since he's gone, I think we're on our fourth manager or third. I think he came in, he was given the job after Atkinson, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But he was obviously there before. So 3 managers since then. I can't tell you what our kind of philosophy, our way of playing, what Charlton actually means. And fingers crossed, Appleton gets the players he needs in, and he hasn't got that excuse to stand behind anymore. And this is his way of playing. They go forward and they can do it. But at the moment, I can't see it, and I haven't seen it since he left, really. And I think the only criticism people had of him was that he always kind of played the same way. And I mean, that was the same for Garner. That was the same a bit for Holden until he went mental at the end, playing crazy people. And now with Appleton, he hasn't played Louis Watson in God knows how long because he decided he wasn't good enough. I don't think we fixed the issue we were trying to fix with that anyway.
No. And that's one thing I think. And I know I've mentioned it already. Speaking to Appleton, that was one thing that me and Charlie both said was we don't have an identity anymore. You used to look at Charlton and go, yeah, that's how they play. Whereas now you have no idea how we're going to play. You show up on a match day and all you think you're going to see is long balls or passing it sideways and hoping for a gap, which, as I mentioned earlier, I don't mind it if it works, but it doesn't work with the players we've got at the moment. And I think Lewis Farini is going to be a brilliant signing on that, by the way. He can get in gaps so well and play on the half turn. And I think that's one midfielder that we're missing at the moment. I think Chem Campbell was doing it brilliantly. I think it was the Oxford? It might have been the Oxford game or where he was playing on the half turn really well. And he was just finding gaps in Oxford formation to play on the half turn. And that's what we're missing. And that's sort of the identity that we are missing at the moment is that midfielder. And I think that's why we're going for so many midfielders as well.
We've had two already come in, and you think like with Kamara, it is scary to think because we were tipped to be in the playoffs by pretty much everyone. You think if Kamara had stayed fit, if Leeburn had stayed fit, mate, like there's every reason to think we could have done it. But do you have the same issue we had a couple of years ago where suddenly you've got too many and you can't keep the whole group happy? It's such a balance, and I love Dobbo. I think he kind of is the player we all bought into. I think that May's come along and taken that torch from him. May seems to have as much quality as Dobbo's got, but he also seems to connect with the fans a little bit quicker, a little bit better. I worry that Dobbo maybe isn't, as much as he leads by example, he's not a talker. He maybe doesn't get the best out of the players around him. And I think that's what one of your other centre-backs did. He almost made himself look worse to make everyone around him look better. But with so many midfielders coming in and it's not been tied up yet, I wonder if there are better players out there and we just need to completely shift everyone. But that's kind of a bigger question. But I like what you say about Farini because God knows we need some quality to actually be. Do you think he comes in ready to play straight away, or do you reckon it's going to be a month or so before he can start?
I think I've recorded a video this morning for the transfer roundup thing, and I think I mentioned it in that he said they said that it would take a little while. He's not going to come in straight away. He hasn't kicked the ball for ages, but with both these loan signings, I think they're more of like a trial period in a way until the end of the season, because let's be honest, Farini's never going to play for Man City, even though they gave him a 5-year deal a couple of years back. He's never going to play for him. So if he is really worth spending 100,000-200,000 on, then let's do it. And with Backinson, his contract expires in the summer. So all for well that both of them do extremely well for us, then we're able to get them in the summer, because what Backinson is what Kamara is, but he's not as injury prone, touch wood.
Right.
So
I like the sound of that. That sounds good to me.
Touching on Dobbo quickly,
just
because you mentioned him. And I spoke to him. When I spoke to him, I said, I said that he has the chance to be a Charlton legend, and I think he has that opportunity to be like a Johnny Jackson.
Yeah.
In you can be Mr. Charlton. You can be, because if you sign a long-term contract here and you keep playing the way that he's playing, then he really, really could. But I think he just needs to build up a bit more confidence on the pitch. He's one of those captains that is captain because he's our best player.
Yeah.
And when I go on to my next centre mid, as you mentioned, he was more one that was a leader on the pitch, but could if he was playing shit, then the players around him would lift him, and still he would come through, and he was a leader on the pitch, and we saw it on Boxing Day as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that and Dobson's obviously been talked about quite a lot on this chat. He has got better every season. He's got better. He's doing things. He did things in that. I know it was only against Cray, but he was like Paul Scholes. The balls he was putting off and the way he hit that shot for the goal, it was like watching prime Paul Scholes. He has it in him. Maybe he just feels like there's too much pressure on his shoulders to do all the shit bits. Maybe relying on Scott Fraser to do it too much, when Fraser, by the looks of it, can't be asked to get out of bed in the morning.
I hope he goes, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got quite, from the looks of it, he's got quite a big, I'd imagine he's one of the higher earners. And
I think he is now the highest earner at the club.
And I'm not calling him shit. He not. But what frustrates me is that he's not doing it. But then maybe it's because of an injury and stuff like that. I don't know. Whereas Dobbo, I think he could play with no legs. Like he will just make it happen.
Yeah.
All right, let's go across the back three. Who are we going for next?
I'm going to go with Darren Pratley next.
We'll hunt for options. He gets it back as well. Just about beat his man to the byline. Taylor able to pick it up. It's a good strike. It's a wonderful finish, that. Darren Pratley.
Brilliant goal to choose there.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't a lot of options, to be honest with you. Yeah, great goal. So, yeah, we kind of mentioned Pratley a couple of times there. Why Pratley?
That one's more from a coaching point of view. A leader is what I love in a player. And he is that. He is one player that, as I will mention again, that even if he was playing shit, you'd still see the quality in there in a way, because he'd be able to lift the team up. It was one player that we are missing in the squad at the moment that I thought maybe Michael Hector would be, to be honest. I think he would look like he would be that leader, but I just don't see it. But Pratley was that leader on the pitch that could build the team back up, and one player that we are massively missing with seeing out games. Because if you had a leader in the squad, we might be able to see out some games and lift the squad up. Like, let's relax, boys. You don't need to rush into challenges, things like that. Leave them in loads of space with the ball. It's little things like that that are missing on the pitch, and I think that's why he goes into this team.
I think that Pratley is the biggest mistake we've made in the last couple of years in terms of players, because from the outsides, and again, don't know anything that goes on in the club, it looked like they had a choice between letting Pratley go or letting Ben Watson go, and they let Watson go. I'm all right in thinking that it's kind of like it was a choice of those two, and he went. And I never saw Ben. I know he won the FA Cup. I know and he was with Wigan and that sort of thing, but I never saw him do anything for Charlton. Whereas Pratley would work his bollocks off every game. And you're 100% right. You put him in this. I mean, the thing that amazed me is that Pratley had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's had 6 teams he's been with. Fulham he had 1 game, but then Brentford he had 50 appearances. Swansea had 177 appearances. Bolton he had 178, and then the 103 with us. When he's in a team, he plays every week because you can rely on him to do that job every week. If he was there with Dobbo, would you see more goals from Dobbo? Would you you'd think Fraser probably would be playing like in that top of that those 3, and he would have been able to go on and do what he did do, what we thought he was going to do. But it just doesn't seem like we've had anyone since Pratley to do that job since then. The talking, not necessarily the winning the balls, because we know Dobbo does that great.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I think on Boxing Day as well, with watching him against Orient, he can still play 90 minutes. What's he, 38, 39 years old?
It's
And
insane.
he's still there kicking about. He'll probably get another year extension, and he probably will still be playing next season for Orient.
He's had 92 appearances for Leyton Orient. I've just seen.
He's only been there 3 years. Is it 3 years he's been there?
Yeah, so that pretty much means that he's played every game. Like he must have done to do that.
He's a big part of winning the league last season as well. One
Yeah.
of my best mates is an Orient fan, and he always mentions Darren Prattley as he's just the engine in their team that just keeps them going. Even in games last season, the big games that they had when they were playing like Stevenage and I can't remember who else came up, Port Vale, like those sort of teams that were in around it, that he was able to boost up.
It's amazing, and I just think that to have a player like that, because I think the only other one that we really had was Pearce, and you kind of, those are the players that you bring on or you'd have on to kind of stabilise everything, and we haven't had that. And that you can't say that's Dobbo because it's not happening at the moment, and Dobbo's playing. We haven't got anyone else in that team who's got the seniority apart from Hector, and he's just not that kind of player. So we desperately miss him. So yeah, he's a big player. And like you said, it doesn't matter how bad he plays, he makes everyone else do their job better. I think he's a solid choice. I don't think he's going to get picked in a lot of all-time 11s, but I completely understand it from that standpoint. So we've got one more centre mid, one more midfielder. Who's your third one?
I'm going with Josh Cullen.
Oh, it's muted because it had music on this one. So just got a couple of highlights of Cullen spraying the ball around and just being Mr. Quality, really. Why? It seems like a silly question, but why Cullen?
Yeah, he had so much quality that, you know, some players in the squad lacked.
Yeah.
And, you know, this one player that I'll always look back on that was probably one of the biggest reasons we went up that season. And he was a big part of the squad the season after as well. And, you know, I just, it's more of a quality reason he's in there. You know, he wasn't there too long. Was it two years in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2 loan spells, which is a bit unusual, isn't it? To have 2 back-to-back season-long loan spells, as far as I'm aware. It's pretty unusual.
And you look at his career now, you know, he's playing in the Prem with Burnley. I don't think he's playing too much now. I think he's a bit out of favour. You know, if he wants another season-long loan, he's more than welcome. But, you know, he's one of those players that will just always have that quality to change games, probably in a I'd say he's probably championship level, potentially where Burnley are at the moment, low end Prem level. But it's just one of those players that you could always rely on to, even if the team around you weren't playing great, he'd still show glimpses of quality and be able to create something from nothing in a way. And, you know, Conor Gallagher as well was another player like that. You know, I wish we had him longer. You know, if injuries didn't happen that season, and, you know, investment was a bit better in January, then it probably could still be in the Championship now.
I always look at that Gallagher going back to Chelsea as a real kick in us when we're down, because apparently the reason we went down is that we weren't doing well enough and they didn't want him in a relegation scrap. And it's like, fucking hell. So not only are you're taking away our best player, but also you're leaving us in the shit without anyone. Yeah. Like Lampard really didn't have a heart. I'm glad he got sacked. What I liked about Cullen was I think he's the closest thing we'd had to Scott Parker in that he did all the dirty work, but had a lot of quality as well. Kind of similar to what we were saying about Dobbo. I think Cullen just seemed to have that ability to pick out a pass as well. And you saw it in the playoff final. And he just seemed to he played these balls that that turned midfield into attack straight away. Whereas I think that's something we're lacking at the moment. I mean, I'm delighted. I love to see a player like that go on and do so well. Shame to hear that he's out of form. I think that you're right, though. I think he'll find his level sort of between those two leagues. But I mean, he's still quite young, and he came on the back of. We seem to have a good tradition of centre midfield loans. You mentioned Gallagher. Back in the old days, it was Coquelin and Alex Song. There's been a few in between then as well. We seem to be trustworthy of getting these players from big teams and bringing them on and then going on to have really good careers afterwards as well.
Yeah, Louis Watson hopefully is that next one.
God knows why. It's one of the things I asked on Charlton Live. Why has he not been playing? And I think it's just Appleton thinking he knows best. Whereas you see him come on, he's got so much energy. It's up to us. It's up to Charlton to kind of develop the other sides. He seems to be able to just be everywhere. Yeah, he's got a mistake on him, but that's why they've sent him to us. If he was good enough, he'd be playing for Luton, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Do you know what? Funnily enough, that's another player that I spoke to after the Bristol Rovers game, and I said to him, "Why aren't you being picked?" He goes, just not. I'm just not. I was like, "Has he given you reasons?" He's like, "No, I'm just not being picked."
Appleton said in the one of the match post-match interviews that he was out of form. I was like, "Have you seen any other player we've got?" Literally, you could
10 minutes.
Everyone.
You can't call a player out of form when he's playing 5-10 minutes at the end of the game, where you're not even subbing him on. Like, it was so frustrating. And even when he was warming up during the Bristol Rovers game, everyone was shouting at him. He was like, "Louis, you need to be on there. How are you not on the pitch?" Like,
it's so. And the frustrating thing is, if we can all see it, I just what frustrated me is that Fraser to a point, but Anderson. I went when the first game I went to see the Aberdeen game with my brother the pre-season, and seeing Anderson link up with Asimwe, I was like, wow, we've got something this season. Those two look fantastic. And then as soon as something bad happens, or as soon as the first game, really, Anderson, you just realise he's just not good enough at the moment. He just hasn't got the quality. Bless him, he tries. He's running around. He's working his bloody socks off. Fair play to you, lad. But he misplaces passes. He loses tackles. He just doesn't seem to be good enough yet. So why play him over Watson, who at least seems like he can create something out of nothing? It really that's one.
I think now Fraser's out of form in Appleton's eyes, which he is. I'm not doing that as in that. I'm quoting Appleton in that. But yeah, no, I think he's probably one that's now being pushed aside, and that's why at the weekend we saw Louis, Dobbo, and Karoy, which probably is our best midfield three at the moment.
Yeah.
The issue with Karoy was Holden leaving. I think if Dino was still here, I think Karoy would be a big part of the season. And whether he was harshly sacked or not, I'm not going to go down that tangent yet. But it's one of those that I think he's not ready yet, but he's almost there. I think he needs probably a loan out. I would loan him out this January, but it depends who we can get in, doesn't it? So. Well,
we got two centre mids in, so you'd think when they get fit, hopefully towards the end of the window, you can do that because it's no good. I love Kanu. I think he's going to be a great player, but I would have loved to have seen him after this season on loan to Southend. Imagine him coming in having scored 40 goals or whatever for Southend, and then hitting the ground running next year, and then you've got Miles and him competing for that front space, and maybe even Clark Harris in there as well. Like suddenly you've got an insane abundance of quality, but now it looks like Kanu he'll probably be good enough to not get loaned out before the end of the window, and then if we do get someone in, he won't be getting picked, and then he's going to lose all that momentum he's built up. But I mean, let's be honest, Josh, you should be running the club. We all know that. Right, so you've gone for 4-3-3. Who's the first of the front three we're going for?
Quickly before we do that, can I run to the toilet really quickly?
Go for it, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I be annoying?
No, we under the desk like we all do. I've done that. That's right. Okay, so got a front three. Who are we going for first?
We'll start with Ademola Lookman. Who's one player that you think he looks like now compared to the squad now? That
Oh,
goal
my God.
especially.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's just a class above. I mean, you'd like to think Corey can do stuff like that,
Mhm.
but it's so hit and miss. So yeah, I guess that's why you chose him.
Yeah, another player that I fell in love with, and one that I definitely was inspired by when I was younger. And yeah, he was just a great talent, and obviously the career he's now playing in the Serie A. He's doing really, really well at Atalanta. So
Yeah,
you know,
sixth, aren't they? I looked it up yesterday. Yeah, he is. He seems to be. It took him a while to find a club after he left, but it seems to have sort of settled in a bit there now.
yeah, he's playing internationally and internationally for Nigeria as well. I think wasn't he at Leipzig as well at one point,
Yeah.
Everton and
Leicester.
That was it.
Yeah. And Fulham.
Oh, and Fulham. Yes, forgot about Fulham. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's
So,
kind of moved around a bit, but he's got so much quality, hasn't he?
yeah, he's just one of those players that you could look at, and I do compare him a little bit to Corey now. I think Corey's almost on that that cut inside and score as you showed there. Like Lookman loved that. That was his trademark as well. Was just taking on a defender and being able to cut inside or go down the line and get a cross in. It does give me flashbacks when I'm watching Corey play as well. So Corey was. This shows the standard of wingers that we've had is that Corey was close to getting into this front three, and Alfie was very close to getting into this front three. Shows the, since I've been going, what sort of wingers and strikers have we had that are there?
Yeah,
at that level.
I mean, I think it's just another one. Again, he came through the academy, didn't he? So we seem to have this ability to produce these quality players, and you wonder what sort of team we'd have if we managed to keep hold of them, or even just sell them for the money they're worth, like what we could do then. But he just seemed to. Again, he sort of came in this period where I wasn't going as regularly. It did seem like any time he got the ball, something you would kind of expect something to happen. Is that how it felt in the ground?
Yeah, definitely. It's how you sometimes feel with Corey now. As I will keep making that reference, because if either of them got the ball, you'd want something to happen from there. You'd expect something to happen from there, whether it was a opportunity for themselves to create, or they take on the defender and create an opportunity for someone else. He was always miles ahead, and you could tell he was gonna have a good career. And it was another one that came through the academy and went on to where he's at now, and he's playing in Europe now. So there you go. That's the sort of career that you can get from coming through Charlton's academy and being good enough.
Just going to take a little snapshot of that and just give it to Tracy Leeburn to do something with. That's probably the best thing you can say about Charlton. Definitely a company man. I love that. All right. Who's next across the front three?
Now this one I don't want to be hated for too much, but I've gone with Lyle Taylor.
Boo!
Never goes the right way, but still can get nowhere near it. Now Lyle Taylor all season has stood up and delivered for Charlton. Top scorer, player of the season. I think we can say that's fairly cool under pressure. There was a moment as he walked.
Just seeing his face annoys me.
Money grabbing scum.
That is what he is.
Yeah, I don't.
He's in the team.
I don't mean. I don't know if you heard the interview of him on TalkSport with Boya. You players have got a very, very short career. They have to earn as much money as they can and then go on to do something. But the stat I like is that he played 63 times for us and scored 32 goals, goal a game, more than a goal a game. And then he goes to Forest and plays 57 times and scores 7 goals. I just think that's absolute karma.
No, he went for the money, didn't he? Like if he'd stayed, he probably would have still been in the same goal scoring records. One player that I will look at is Alfie May. could have gone for money so much earlier.
Mm.
You know, after that first season in League One, he could have easily probably gone to a Championship club, earned his money, and that's him just sitting on the bench at a Championship club and playing the under-21s like Lyle Taylor is. But well, he's at Wickham now, isn't he? But
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
It's Alfie was one player that obviously went on to, and I think Alfie's moved at the right time. Lyle should have had a couple more seasons before moving, and more seasons to prove himself a little bit more. And look, he was a fantastic player for us, and one player that
And he was a talisman as well. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
he was a great player, but also he really got us going. He seemed to have so much fire around him. Like, I know that he had some controversial views and stuff, and people picked him up, but you see him get involved with the community and that kind of thing, and he really lit a fire everyone on and off the pitch. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this.
That's the most frustrating part about it, because look, the only reason he's in this team is because of that League One season that he had, and you know how good he was during that Championship season, obviously before he got injured, and then obviously didn't want to play. But look, he was a great player, and there's no point faulting it, and probably the best striker that I've seen, apart from Alfie May. But I can't put Alfie in this year. I couldn't put any of the players currently, because I'll be honest, the main teams that I've sort of fallen in love with is the last few years going more regularly, and they're the teams that I've seen, which is really, really painful when I look back at some of the other players that I have seen a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna fall in love with a team just as much as I have with certain players in the past.
I just think, like, the way he plays football, like you see the assist he gets in the playoff final. He wasn't a selfish player. He got so many goals. I mean, the record. So he goes to Forest and he plays 57 times, scores 7. He then goes to Birmingham, plays 64 times, scores 5. Like, he's just on this downward trajectory, and you just think, what would have happened if you had kept us up? Like, if he had played, I'm pretty much 99% sure we stay up, because I reckon he gets us those 2-3 extra goals we needed. We stay in the Championship. Then do we rally around? Thomas then comes in, so we get a new owner. Suddenly there's money to be spent, and you're not buying Sean Clare, you're not buying O'Connell, you're buying players of Championship quality. Then are you solid? Are you getting solid in the Championship? Do you kind of consolidate? I don't know, but it's so many ifs, buts, and maybes, and you just wonder if that one guy had made that one decision. And I do get it. The money must have been offered, must have been insane. But what happens if you play for a Championship club for one more year, then you move? And if he has another season like he had, or even half a season, the guy dyed his hair pink for charity. He's not a bad guy. It's just that he just fucked me off so much. It's him and Scott Parker at the top for biggest Arsenal. And that made Solly look like an absolute angel. But this no one even remembers. Like, no one cares about that. Yeah. But it's him and Scott Parker at the top there for biggest Arsenal, I think.
Yeah, so, definitely. He was a great player, but left on bad terms in the end. That's one reason that I was very close to just putting Alfie in there, just because I like Alfie.
He's a nice guy.
I just like Alfie.
What happens when he leaves us at the end of the season? And we could have done something.
He won't.
So your last player, who have you gone for? Number 11.
Goodmanson. Another player that could just turn quality on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him being one of those players that stood out in that period where he just seemed to be a level above, and he just seemed absolute quality. How was it when you were watching him? What kind of is that? I mean, that clip's quite good because it shows him winning the ball back and then this ridiculous shot where it goes just under the crossbar. I mean, he just seemed to be able to. He just seemed a level above everyone else.
Yeah, he was just a quality player, and even when you mention him like working the ball back there, he was always working hard to. He wasn't afraid to take his man on. He knew when to take his man on as well. I think that's one key aspect of him, and he had a brilliant strike on him, as that showed as well. Like he was another player that, as I said, could just turn his quality on and off when he wanted to, and one that definitely was another player that I had a love for.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed a bit like the League One's David Beckham, really, because he could cross, he could shoot, he seemed to play these balls around that were like immaculate. Put it on a
Decent at free kicks, when he as well.
Yeah. Did you watch the England game? I'm sure you did. The England game in where we got knocked out against Iceland, where he played. I kind of that was the worst game I'd had as an England fan, I think, or at least one of them. It was really hurt. But there was a little bit of me that was like, oh, Goodmanson is good though, isn't he? And I'm glad I know he didn't score in the game, but he hurt us a few times.
Yes, he was good.
There was a little bit of a silver lining of like, yeah, he came from Charlton. He was at Burnley already by that point. But yeah, and that's again, you're picking someone who's got the quality to go on and playing in the Premiership, and he's still turning out for Burnley, isn't he? He's still getting games.
I think so. Double check it. I'm pretty sure.
I've got him as 186 games, 13 goals, and as far as I know, he's still in the squad. I don't know if he's starting every game, but I've definitely seen him a match of the day.
He is still in the squad.
Yeah.
33 years of age.
Yeah, that's
pretty 13 times. He's played 13 times this season.
Yeah. So I mean, that's
off the bench, but yeah, no, he's still playing.
So let's have a look. Let's have a look at your team. Here we go. So not the best image. How do you feel about that now? Looking at it on paper.
Any changes? Like a team. No changes. Obviously, Lyle Taylor's the only one that I'm going to get a bit of stick for, I think.
Well, the question I ask you now is, if you had to choose someone from the current squad to play in your all-time 11, who would it be? And it sounds like you made that decision already.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't really need to say too much. Yeah, it probably would be Alfie. Looking at that. So,
do you think that Alfie has the ability to lead? Because one of the big things that I liked about Appleton when he came in was that he seemed to drop Alfie back to that sort of 10 rather than the 9. And you do see Alfie having the best of the ball when he's kind of just in behind. He's not being picked up by the two centre-backs. Do you think you play the same? Do you leave? Do you swap him straight in for Taylor? Or does he kind of drop back a little bit?
That's one change that I would probably change to 4-4-2. If I was to play Taylor and May together, would work really, really well. And then I'd go Jacko and Cullen in the midfield and Pratley to come on and see out games. That's how I'd see it.
So who are you swapping then? If Taylor's staying in there, who are you swapping out?
I'd swap out Pratley and then bring Pratley on. I'd bring Pratley on to see out games. You know, you could rotate him with Jacko. That's my
So just getting this right, you're not saying you're swapping Taylor for May. What you're doing is swapping Pratley for May, going 4-4-2, and then so what you're doing is you're dropping who we said has been one of the best servants, everyone working for, and leaving on the scum that is bringing May in, brilliant.
And then the reasoning is because Alfie can't play as a 9 by himself.
I agree. Yeah,
but you're right. You could try it. If it didn't work, then that's when I changed to 4-4-2. But yeah, originally Taylor would come off.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to be realistic, then I'd probably rotate Pratley and Jacko, and bring vice versa on to see out games.
We'll have to be realistic. It's not roses, is it? No, it's a lovely squad, very well balanced. I've seen people go with no width at all, but this actually, with Goodmanson and Lookman and Purrington and Solly, they all work that line really well. So yeah, you haven't forced anyone in there. I'll be honest, I don't think it's the best all-time 11, but I think it's in terms of the parameters you set. Yeah, I can't see anyone in there that doesn't deserve their place. And I've really enjoyed learning about Konza. Like I said, I knew who that guy was, but he looks very good. I'm sad we don't have him anymore. So how's it been? Was it? Did you enjoy it? Was it easy picking the team, or was it? Do you think that you're going to be having nightmares about this for weeks going on?
Yeah, Lyle Taylor's just going to live in my memory now for ages, and I'm just going to be like hating it every single day. No, it took a little while, to be fair. I was sat there, I was sat in my missus' living room, and I was saying, like, I don't want to put Lyle Taylor in there. I really don't, but I don't know who else we've got.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
We haven't, and wingers as well. Like, I was so close to putting Corey in. I had to like think back. I was thinking, who's actually been quite good winger for us? And I was looking back through the squads, and I was like, do you know what, these two will do.
I heard someone mention the Canadian we had. I'd forgotten about him completely. It was the season we went down. We got him on loan. That's going to kill me now.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to. I'd have to have a look. I can't remember at all.
Someone mentioned him. I was like, Miller, I think it was Liam Miller.
Yes.
He was rapid. He was
yeah,
just never quite. But I think that's the only other player that I can think of that.
Was that him? I think so. I can't remember. We'll find it. We'll find it.
The other guy was the one they called. There was a Scottish lad. God, I'm really going off on tangents now. That we let go, who was very good, but I think he had a few injuries. They gave him a sort of Brazilian-sounding name. He was from Scotland. Can't remember it now. I'll have to put it in the comments because this is going to
have a look.
You've already taken nearly an hour and 45 minutes. Might as well go
and another hour 45 minutes trying to work out who it is.
It's infuriating. He sort of played in the 10 role a little bit, but he wasn't an out-and-out winger. But I think he played outright a few times.
I haven't got a clue.
We had him on loan. But there's a couple of players that even in the last 3 or 4 years have just completely gone from memory. And then you think about them, you're like, oh, God.
I forgot we had them, yeah.
I'll message you who it is and I'll put it in the comments. Josh, thanks so much for coming on. And one of the big revelations, you've got a missus and you're managing to make it work by going to Charlton home and away. Fucking, I can't even have the sound on in the house. That is, congratulations. That is, keep hold of her. She sounds...
She's a Sheffield Wednesday fan. That's the only bad part.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's good going. No, I like that. Where can people keep an eye out for your stuff? Is it mainly the YouTube channel? Where should people sign up and look for you?
Yeah, mainly YouTube's my main source. Twitter as well. I'm quite active on Twitter, but if you don't want controversial views, then don't follow me on Twitter because I'm quite the. I think I remember mentioning something about Macaulay Bonne and getting so much hate for it last season. It was brilliant. I thought he had a good game one game, and apparently he didn't. But there you go.
He didn't make it into your 11. That's funny, isn't it?
He didn't.
Him and Omar Bogle. Imagine them two. Really all right, that's been lovely. Thank you so much, mate. And we'll keep an eye out and look forward to the next. I'm looking forward to the transfer update because I'd love to know what's going on.
Thank you very much for having me on.
No worries, mate. Speak to you soon. Oh, and we're done.